Live from the hippest spot online, you've arrived at the Pop Culture Juke Joint, the only weekly podcast you'll need for intelligent showbiz chats. Located just up the street from the Peach Pit and down that dark, damp alley behind Fonzie's Garage, you'll find former newsman and current hard-boiled crime writer Anthony Venutolo, chatting with guests about everything from old-school classics to new-school staples. So head up to the bar, grab a drink, and settle in here at the Pop Culture Juke Joint. Now, your host, Anthony Venutolo.
Welcome to another episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint, where each week we take a deep dive into one particular topic of pop culture, be it TV, books, music, comics, media, you name it. This week, co-host Jack Lugo and I are excited to speak about the return of Larry David and HBO's Curb Your Enthusiasm. Jack and I discuss Larry's return, what worked, what didn't, the familiar faces, where we think it's going, and we also discuss the influences that Larry's had on, TV since he arrived on the scene when Curb Your Enthusiasm first debuted. We also talk about Jerry Seinfeld and obviously the sitcom that Larry and Jerry created. So grab your drink, sit back, relax, enter the juke joint. So Jack.
Yes, Anthony.
Larry David is back.
Yeah, I've missed him. I think a lot of people have.
I think a lot of people have. It's funny. I was watching this. I took a lot of notes, and I'm going to say that while I'm happy Larry's back, okay, I'm glad to have Larry back in the universe.
Yeah.
TV Larry, I should say. I don't necessarily think that tonight's episode was anything spectacular.
Yeah, it wasn't super memorable. I mean, it's memorable because it's been gone for so long. But if you think about all the classic episodes that you remember from this show, it was kind of like in between. But I still laughed. I still had a good time watching it.
I laughed many, many times. But this kind of just reminded me of a episode from one of the later seasons of Larry David, where Larry gets caught up in these silly situations, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it just so now we've been gone now how many years? Like 6-7 years, something like that,
yes.
And the world has changed a lot.
The world has changed a lot, but you don't really get that sense in the show. I mean, I was I know his daughter does this thing with social media. She has this like YouTube thing where it's a lot of it's based on social media, and then there wasn't. It was almost like it never went away. Like this could have come out like the year after the last season, right, and it would have been the same show.
Right. I mean, I guess maybe I was expecting Larry reflecting on the world that we're in now.
Yeah, we may get that eventually.
Well, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will. And I would have expected or hoped that the first episode back was maybe a little bit stronger than this. But, that all being said, I think the funniest part of tonight's episode is Leon. Leon just cracked me up.
Anytime he coaches Larry on, what the in thing is to do and the slang, and he's done that before, obviously. But I can watch that all day. Just those scenes with Leon. I mean,
he has got a comic timing. He's got a delivery. JB Smoove is, when he referred to Larry's secretary as that effing limpy ass girl. It just cracked me up because he doesn't even know her.
Yeah, no, he doesn't
even know her.
I mean, that's one of those cases where someone could be offensive and they're allowed to get away with it. And I think Larry, the character Larry that he plays, he sort of sees that. He's kind of, I think he's jealous of that. He wants to have that where he can just be as obnoxious and offensive as possible, and people just let him slide.
It's just hilarious when he called the barber, when he said that you a goddamn groom.
Goddamn, and she didn't really react to that in a very as negatively as she did when Larry said that. So it cracked me up. I mean, it's like
what we did get here was Larry's affinity for using these great these great words. Where he referred to bride vibes. I'm not getting bride vibes from you. You're not groomy. She's not bridey. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine like an episode of Seinfeld where that would have been used. I mean, the stuff. There's so much in this episode that, the holding open the door at the beginning, and then that comes back to haunt them. And, obviously there's been many episodes of Curb where you have one kind of faux pas that kind of, circles around and comes back throughout an episode. No one executes it better than Larry David.
Yeah. And this really was reminiscent of the episode where he didn't hold the elevator door for someone.
Yeah, exactly.
So when this happened right off the bat in the beginning, I was a little bit nervous. I was like, oh man, come on. Like not another holding the door open subplot. And, I was like, really still again? But you know what? It was funny and it was typical Larry. And I'm glad to see all the familiar faces. As usual, Cheryl,
Ted Danson, Jeff Garland,
Richard Lewis, who I hope he's okay. He's looking a little long in the tooth lately. I hope he's okay.
Yeah, I was watching with my wife, and she was kind of surprised at how much older he looked, and he doesn't.
Yeah, he. I got a funny Richard Lewis story. This was back in the day when I was at the newspaper. We used to get in, pretty early, because the hours were different and it wasn't like a 24-hour operation. Yeah. So you got in early and you got to leave early. So I'm there and I'm opening up the mail and it's, 9:30 or whatever. It's sort of empty. And the phone rings. Okay. The phone rings. So I don't know what compelled. Actually, no, it was my phone line. It wasn't the department's phone line. It was my phone line. I picked it up and it was Richard Lewis. It was actually Richard Lewis. And he you want to know why I was calling?
Why was he calling?
He was calling because he wanted to get a clip from the newspaper, believe it or not, of his appearance in Atlantic City.
Like a clip of a review that the paper published?
Yeah, okay. like a clip of, it wasn't even a review. Back in the day, we didn't even do a real review. We just did, Richard Lewis is coming to town and blah, 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 blah. And it was written by a guy named Charlie Einstein. He was like an old timer. And from what I can remember, I have to ask someone what the case was, but I think that was his stepbrother or something like that. And he was just looking for the clip. I think it was kind of funny. And I was like, oh my God, this is Richard Lewis. I was a little starstruck. I forgot what I told him, but I guess I told him how he can get the clip of the newspaper. We have a service that did that. Yeah. So that that's my brush with greatness as far as the Larry David universe. Let me ask you a question. Who do you think, when all is said and done in terms of TV history, who do you think is more influential? Jerry Seinfeld or Larry David? And the reason why I'm asking this is because obviously Jerry and Larry created Seinfeld. Yeah. But Larry, I think, has influenced more as a result of his show.
Yeah, I think I see where you're going. Yeah, I think, Larry David, the character of George, is based on Larry David. And, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, Jerry, not to take anything away from Jerry Seinfeld, but, yeah, a lot of the George stories and, like, his mannerisms that, you see now, having watched Curb, a lot of that, is what made that show successful. I mean, in addition to Seinfeld, obviously, because the jokes but I mean the kind of like the lack of political correctness, or like the lack of like sensibility to when you're being offended, that of when you're being offensive, that kind of like he's just that kind of like jerky personality, but you kind of love him anyway. I think the success of that show, I mean, a lot of it had to do with that kind of sensibility. So I mean, obviously, I don't want to take anything away from Jerry Seinfeld, because he's also brilliant as well. But I could see how the success of Seinfeld was a lot to do with Larry's involvement in that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I ask is because I think, Jerry gave us a model or I should say Seinfeld gave us the model of the sitcom based around the comedian.
Yeah.
And I think, when Larry started his show, it gave us a different model. It gave us a real life model of the showbiz celebrity playing himself.
Yeah, we see that.
In an alternate universe.
Yeah, where the celebrity is like a character in his own life.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of enjoy that more. I mean, I love Seinfeld, but I think I find myself, sort of enjoying Curb over the years a lot more than I did Seinfeld, even when Seinfeld was on. They're both incredible shows, but I love that kind of extra layer to it.
Well, I mean, look, right before we pressed the record button tonight, we were talking about, Dice's show.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about Dice a few episodes back, but you have to admit that the model of Dice really doesn't stray too far from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, exactly. He's playing like a character that's that's himself, and putting himself in these kind of situations, and commenting on certain things in society, and putting his own spin on things, on that format. So I mean, in terms of what's more influential, I think you could make an argument that Curb sort of launched this kind of format.
Right. I mean, for God's sakes, you have Marin. Okay, you have the show Episodes, where Matt LeBlanc plays a scumbag version of himself. Yeah. You have Louis, for God's sakes, probably the biggest example of this, and you have the show Better Things, starring Pamela Adlon, who she's playing kind of like a version of herself. So I would have to argue that I think as great and groundbreaking as Seinfeld was, I don't know. I mean, I think Curb probably might have influenced more television to come after.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, I just watched actually the Netflix special on Seinfeld, and he has an incredible gift for observational humor, and that's what he brought to that show. I mean, the observational humor from his stand-up comedy, and a lot of those jokes that he told, that got him to where he was, they still work today.
I meant to watch that, and I'm the one that told you I was going to watch it, and I didn't, and you ended up watching it. He was on Howard Stern this past week.
Oh, he was. Okay. He's done a few appearances there, but I didn't hear the most recent one.
And it was a really good interview. It was a long interview. It was like an hour and a half. And you have to love the ease by which Seinfeld just approaches his craft. He's so effortless when it comes to the comedy. In a way where, it looks like it actually pains Larry to be funny.
Yeah.
Where Jerry, it just seems to come natural. It's funny. I don't know if you know this, and I actually went to YouTube to check this out, but when Jerry was talking about, the real influences of Seinfeld, a lot of people think or claim, Woody Allen and that kind of thing. And no doubt there's a lot of Woody Allen-esque themes in Seinfeld. But Jerry was going on and on about how the Abbott and Costello TV show was really the model for Seinfeld.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's not something I would have guessed. I mean, I've heard a lot of interviews with Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, he was going on and on about how kind of like everybody in Abbott and Costello was basically more or less self-centered, not repugnant, but actually just not nice people. All of them were kind of like out for themselves. And I was like, wow, this kind of sounds like interesting. And, I have to admit, I never grew up watching Abbott and Costello. It wasn't really on when I was coming home from school. In grade school, it was all sitcoms. But now I think I have to check some of them out, right?
Yeah, no, that isn't. I don't think I've heard that before. And like I said, I've listened to a lot of the interviews about Seinfeld and stuff. So
yeah,
so that is interesting.
Yeah. So where do you think this season of Curb Your Enthusiasm is going to go?
Well, we didn't talk about it, but we had this whole thing where Larry has a fatwa now on him. He wrote this musical comedy called Fatwa based on the Ayatollah Khomeini's denunciation of Salman Rushdie. The Satanic Verses, and that sounds like an interesting musical. But,
it really does.
And then he went on Jimmy Kimmel to kind of talk it up, and he ended up impersonating the Ayatollah, and he was thinking about playing the Ayatollah, if the musical came out, which I mean, I know they already kind of did. Larry David, goes on the producers, so I don't know if they would have, I wasn't expecting to bring up another musical, but yeah, then an actual fatwa is put on Larry David.
That was hilarious. I mean, Larry David must really be a Broadway fan. I mean, the Broadway themes really run really through a lot of these shows. I have a pet peeve. I have a little pet peeve of mine that I'm thinking that I don't know if TV Larry David would have gone on Jimmy Kimmel. Meaning, in that universe, Larry David, I don't think he is like popular Larry David. He's just the creator of Seinfeld. I don't know if TV Larry David would have gone on Jimmy Kimmel. I think that's really weird because he's never done TV shows, right?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I guess because
our Larry David would go on Jimmy Kimmel. I don't think TV Larry David would go on Jimmy.
Well,
Kimmel.
the way it was set up, I guess, is Jeff booked him on there, and I guess and also the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing comes into play because of the whole foisting of the assistant, and so you kind of figured that Jimmy Kimmel, you would at least see Jimmy Kimmel. Like you said, I wasn't expecting him to actually go on the Jimmy Kimmel show. But I kind of expected Jimmy Kimmel to show up at some point, because of the whole, storyline with the assistant, which was another thing I thought was funny about, the assistant telling him that she's constipated and can't work, and and how Jimmy Kimmel kind of foisted her on him, and then he, in turn, had to get rid of, figure out a way to foist her on someone else. That whole thing I thought that was hilarious.
Funny stuff. Well, hopefully we're going to see more of this fatwa, or maybe there's one producer who's willing to do it. Maybe not on Broadway, maybe off Broadway, maybe somewhere in Los Angeles. Let's hope that the whole fatwa thing isn't dead.
I don't think it is, because I don't know if you watched the preview for next week's episode, but they do bring it up. So I don't know if they're actually going to go through with the musical, part of it. It might just be a follow up on the whole, the actual fatwa that is out on Larry and trying to avoid getting killed. But it should be interesting. And then another thing, I think Lauren Graham is supposed to be on this season of Curb Your Enthusiasm,
right?
And
as kind of like his love interest,
as his
right?
love interest, but we didn't see her in this episode, so she'll probably turn up at some point soon. Yeah, that should be another thing to look forward to.
Wasn't he? Wait, refresh my memory. Maybe you forgot. Wasn't he either seeing or married to Vivica A. Fox in like the last season?
He was briefly.
Didn't she die? Did she die?
She got cancer, I think, and
right,
and then he left her, or she left him because it was too much of a burden. Because the Larry character couldn't bring himself to take care of another human being, and it was just too much of a too much to ask, too much of a burden, even though it's his wife that's dying.
Jesus Christ!
But this, I think she died. I mean, I don't remember.
I think she died too, and I think that's how. Wasn't she related to Leon, or wasn't Leon related to her?
Yeah, Leon was related to her, and then that's when the black.
That's why he moved in, right?
The blacks moved in after Katrina. That was a few seasons ago. I think it wasn't the last season. It was like a couple of seasons before that one.
Wow. You didn't realize? I didn't realize it was so many. It was like 3 seasons, I guess. Yeah. So we're lucky that Leon's still around, because let me tell you something. That guy is just.
Oh yeah, I could watch him all day. Yeah. JB
Smoove. Do you watch his show on MSG?
No, I haven't checked that out. How is that?
It's very good. I don't know if they're making new episodes. It's kind of like a Dinner for Five.
Okay.
Dinner for Five was on Sundance a million years ago, and Jon Favreau would host a roundtable with other filmmakers and actors and showbiz people, and it was just an amazing show that I managed to get on DVD.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got them all on DVD. And if anyone ever wants an informal lesson on show business, Hollywood filmmaking, get your hands on these DVDs or go onto YouTube.
What's the show called again?
It's called Dinner for Five. Okay, and there'll be let's say a round table of Jon Favreau, Vince Vaughn, Jay Moore, Robert Downey Jr., and Dom DeLuise, okay? And they'll be at a restaurant in L.A., and they're just talking about, whatever comes up. And a lot of times it's about movies and about experiences in Hollywood, experiences on the set, incredible stories. And every now and then there'll be either themed episodes where Favreau will have on maybe some old timers like Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise, and maybe some Vegas people like Norm Crosby, or just everybody around the table. And I think he did one with Martin Scorsese, just he and Martin Scorsese. But the reason why I bring it's incredible. The reason why I bring that up is that JB Smoove has a show that's similar to that on MSG, and of course it deals more with sports, obviously. So he'll have showbiz people and athletes on, and it's basically the same idea. Instead of them being in a restaurant, I do believe they're on a set, I think. So yeah, you should check that out. It's on MSG.
Okay, cool.
So,
I'll look into that.
Great stuff. That was a huge segue. I went off the beaten path, incredibly. But so I think that's all we can probably say about this episode, right? I mean, it was, for me, if I had to grade it, I would give it a score between 0 and 100. I would have to say an 82. I would give it an 82.
I was thinking about an 80 myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm looking forward to the season. The little thing that I think we forgot to mention. Well, it wasn't that much of a big thing, but Ted Danson appears, and in the show, Ted Danson is now separated from Mary Steenburgen. Yes. So it's implied that maybe him and Cheryl will get together.
I was thinking the same thing, and I saw them together. I was like, are they kind of hiding a relationship from Larry already?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird how like they kind of gravitated towards each other, and how Ted was happy. He was like walking away towards Lewis, like, oh my God, he's so annoying or whatever. So yeah, I think you're onto something.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So all right. So if you love Larry David, like, he's back. This is it. I don't know how many episodes we're getting. Do you know?
I don't know either, but I know he's going to be back for a while. I mean, I'm guessing at least 12, maybe.
At least 12. Yeah. I'd say it's a good bet. All right, Jack. Well, I think I think we've said all that we can say. We will be back soon. Jack and I have been planning a discussion about The Deuce on HBO. I'm incredibly excited about this show.
Yeah, me too.
My interest in it has gone up with each episode, and I think last week's episode 3, it really hit its stride, and Jack and I will be having a discussion about that maybe within the next few episodes. So stay tuned for that. Jack, let them know where they can find you on Twitter.
You can find me at Jack Lugo 1.
At Jack Lugo 1. We're signing off. We will be back very soon. Take it easy.
Thanks, Anthony.
Bye-bye.
Enjoyed this episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint? Then don't forget to tip the barkeep by subscribing and reviewing us on iTunes and Stitcher. Also, for some sizzling noir tales, head on over to Amazon to check out Anthony's hard-boiled fiction, available in print, digital, and audiobook formats. On social media, follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony Venutolo, or like his page on Facebook. For everything else, please visit his webpage at www.anthonyvenutolo.com. We'll see you next week.